Hey folks, let's talk briefly about subtracting integers. So we learned already about adding integers. When you subtract integers, there's a variety of ways to look at it, but I want to kind of just look at one possible idea that you could use. So for example, let's start looking at 4 minus 2, and you might be thinking, okay, that doesn't really involve integers, but remember, integers are positive and negative whole numbers. So in this case, I have 4 of something, right? So it's saying 1, 2, 3, 4, and it says 4 positive, and it says take 2 of them away, right? So I'm going to take 2 of them away. So I'm going to take these 2, and I can get rid of them, and then I'll just have 2 left, right? Now, another way to look at that, though, let's say I didn't do it that way, is to say, well, what about if instead of just taking 2 positives away, what about if I added 2 negatives? What would happen if that were the case? So instead of subtracting 2 positives, I added 2 negatives. Well, if I add 2 negatives to this situation, then 2 negatives are going to add and actually help these 2 positives cancel out. And what do I'm still left with my 2 positives. So I end up still with the same answer, which is kind of a nice thought, because maybe what we can do is, instead of subtracting, we can think about adding the opposite, right? Which basically means, in a lot of cases, I'm going to add a negative, right? Because it would be doing the opposite of that. Okay, so let's see if that works in this kind of situation. So if I have 5 of something, right? So I've got 5 positives, okay? But it's saying subtract 7. Well, I can't take away 7 from this, okay? But what I could do is I could add 7 negatives. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so what's going to happen? Well, these will all cancel out. And I'm left with 2 negatives as my final answer there. Which, think about it. If you have $5 and someone says to me, okay, if you have $5 and someone's like, actually, I need 7. I need to take 7 away. You owe me $7. You're like, ooh, well, here's my 5. And then I'm going to have to IOU $2 more because I still owe you $2 because I'm out of money, but I'll owe you $2, right? I'm in debt to you $2. So that would be the same thing. So it looks like this adding a negative situation might be helpful. So let's look at it in another situation. And this time we're going to actually have 3 negatives to start. So here I am, 1, 2, 3 negatives. But instead, right, I still have this value, but I have to subtract 10. Well, subtracting 10, right, would be the same, we're saying, as adding 10 negatives. So I'm going to say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Well, how much do I have left here? How much do I have? I have a total of 10 and 3 negatives, because I have 3 negatives and 10 negatives, which is 13 negatives. So in this situation, right, you're already in debt to someone $3, and they're like, hey, you owe me another 10, and you're like, well, now I owe you 13. So you really gotta, hey, maybe you need a part-time job, you know? Okay, so then we come down here to 9, or to this next problem, where we have 9 positives. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And in this situation, it says that we are going to be subtracting negatives. Well, I don't even have negatives, right? So if I'm subtracting negatives, then I'm doing the opposite, right? In this case, the opposite of subtracting. Well, the opposite of subtracting is actually going to be to add. So I can actually add 2 positives. And I end up with a total of 11. Okay. And then I come down to this very last one here, which I hope you can see. Yep. And I have 4 negatives. Okay. And then again, check out this part. I want to do the opposite of subtract, and the opposite of subtracting is adding. So now, let's make sure, though, we have to go back to the beginning. I have -4. I have -4. Let me put that out. But now I'm adding 3 positives. So I add 3 positives to that. Whoop, whoop, whoop. And what happens is these cancel out, and I'm left with 1 negative. I hope that was helpful. This is reviewing what you hopefully have already learned from last year, so hopefully this is helpful for your MSR.